Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be empowered in their masculinity in the anti-male age. I'm your host, Brian Crawl, and today I'm going to be mansplaining to you about motivation. Motivation is something that a lot of people seem to be struggling with these days. Many people are feeling terribly unmotivated, and I know how that feels. When I was in the self-help industry and was giving advice on how to do things like fitness, there would often be people who'd ask me how they can motivate themselves to do things like a difficult workout when they are tired and don't want to do it. This is often an issue when we need to accomplish something that is very hard. And it's especially problematic if you are depressive, apathetic, or a black pillar like me who's often confounded by the seeming pointlessness of everything. So how do we motivate ourselves to get things done when it appears that nothing really even actually matters at all and we don't really want to do anything, except maybe just lay flat for a good long while? Well, there's this principle that things worth doing generally don't come easy, and the more worth doing something is, the harder it'll be. And of course, the more you want to accomplish in your lifetime, the more work you're going to have to put in to do that. So we have decisions we need to make about what to use our energy for in our life. The first thing you should ask yourself if you're wondering how to get motivated or stay motivated to keep putting effort into something is, why exactly are you doing it? Do you have good reasons for it? Because if so, that should be enough of a motivating factor to keep you going. And if so, then why exactly would you be lacking motivation? Why do you need to be motivated to do something if it is in fact important to you and something you do value and want to be doing and using your resources for? We should always try to figure out the why when it comes to the things we desire and want to pursue in life. It's crucial to make sure we are not investing ourselves in something we don't actually really want and only think that we want for the wrong reasons, like our social conditioning. In other words, because we were told that it is what we ought to be doing. Something that we think we want but don't have a really good reason for is something we can't justify investing a lot of our time, energy, and other resources on. Like women, for instance. And feeling unmotivated to do it may be your subconscious mind's way of informing you that it is just not actually something you consider worth doing. So you have to consider why exactly you are lacking motivation and if this is something that is really important to you or not. Answer this question. Why do you want that thing exactly? Write down your answer as specifically as possible, okay? Don't be wishy-washy about it, because then what you need to do is look at it and evaluate your reasoning and figure out if you actually feel justified in investing yourself and your resources, your time, energy, and money into it. And then ask yourself, is that reason enough to motivate you to do it? Because that's another good question you need to ask yourself, right? Why do I feel the need to get more motivation in order to do this thing? And perhaps more importantly, do I really need more motivation at all? If it is important, can I just do it? Or do I need motivation? Because maybe I shouldn't be doing it. Maybe that is why you feel the need to be more motivated, because maybe you really don't want to or feel that you ought not to. For instance, I myself used to find it really difficult to get myself to work on time in the morning. I've got insomnia and sleep like shit most of the time, and mornings are naturally difficult for me, but I realized I also felt this way when I didn't have to go in first thing in the morning, right? If I had to go in, at noon or at 3 p.m., no matter what, I had trouble getting myself ready to go to work. And I realized that the real problem was that I hated my job and dreaded going in because it was just so soul-crushing. And so trying to force myself to go in every day was like pulling teeth. In time, I changed my career and became my own boss. And now I do not have that same problem because I now am doing work that I actually feel motivated to do. So sometimes the reason you're feeling unmotivated is because your motivations aren't what you thought they were. Maybe they once were, but they have now changed. Something you were once motivated to do, you no longer are. Your priorities in life have simply changed as you've grown. So you need to reevaluate what you are doing with yourself and make some course corrections. In these cases, you need to do some serious soul searching to figure out what your values and motivating factors in life actually are and what it is that gives you a sense of purpose and passion. and then rearrange your priorities accordingly. Get to the why of your actions. And if you want to learn more about how to do these things and what things like values and purpose actually consist of, click the links below to watch the videos that I have on those things. But what you need to be doing is making sure that the things you are doing have good reasons behind them, and that they are actually aligned with who you are, what you value, and what it is you want in life, the purpose you are trying to create for yourself. Because it is in those things that you will find the motivation that you seek. And part of that motivation is dedication to persevering and continuing in your pursuit in spite of how you may feel. We're not always going to feel super energized, confident, inspired, empowered, or however it is you want to feel in order to best take action. And in these cases, we need to just take action and do it anyway. We are men, not women. We cannot abandon our commitments and obligations just because we don't feel fully enthusiastic about them at the time, or aren't as happy as we'd like to be with our work. In fact, as my own boss, I've worked even longer hours than before, and my job has been much harder. I've had much more responsibility and have been often quite exhausted, all in spite of being underpaid as well. But focusing on the things that I was more motivated to do because I had better reasons to do them and was more invested in them emotionally and psychologically and otherwise caused me to keep at it no matter what, in spite of these things all not being a miracle cure for low energy. And so no matter how tired I was, I would still have to get all of my work done, and I would always get all my work done, even if I was barely awake. All right, that is what I did because that's what motivation is about. It is continuing to stay the course and put in the hard work, even when you aren't fully with it. All right, it's about putting in 100%, even when you don't feel like you have 100% to give. So getting out of bed in the morning and getting to work may not cost less energy when you're doing something that you want to do. In fact, the work may cost you more energy, but when you're doing work that you actually want to be doing and are motivated to do, it's probably going to be much easier psychologically for you to get to it every day and stick with it over long periods of time. Though that doesn't mean you're always going to feel enthusiastic about getting out of bed and getting to work every day. Yet you still do it, all right? So why do you do it if you don't feel motivated? Because you don't need to feel motivated to just go through the motions and get it done. Now, I understand that this is suboptimal and it doesn't feel great, right? You aren't passionate when you're just going through the motions mechanically like that. So your heart isn't in it, and thus you probably won't put in as much energy and do as good of work. And also, when you're acting in this automated, mechanized fashion, you tend to not really pay attention to what you are doing and may make mistakes or just not function as optimally as possible. It is just a lower level of functioning. I understand it's not ideal, right? However, being on robot mode does have its time and place where it is actually a very effective way of operating, psychologically speaking. But I get that for many activities, you want there to be some sort of engagement and enthusiasm for what you're doing. And that may not always be a reasonable expectation. All right? Most of life is actually quite mundane and shouldn't require much motivation for you in order for you to go through it. So do you really need to take more time and energy trying to get yourself inspired and motivated to do the things that you want to do? I mean, can't you just take action regardless of how you feel about the task at hand? Because I can guarantee you, you certainly are not always going to feel like you're in the mood to be doing the work that you need to do. Work is work. And in my mind, you shouldn't need to be in the mood to do something or to feel motivated and enthused about doing it just to get the goddamn thing done. You may even feel discouraged at times. That's natural. And that shouldn't mean that you give up just because you feel unmotivated to keep going. You should just be able to keep on going. One foot in front of the other like you always do, whether you're motivated or not. For instance, yesterday was Sunday. I was more hungover than I've been in weeks. I had a wicked headache and a stomach ache, and I had all of these chores to do. And I did them anyway, even though while I was doing them, I was getting like horrible back pain and, all I wanted to do was lay down. I got everything done this weekend that I needed to do, in addition to getting, the drinking that I wanted to do done as well. And I didn't let the negative feelings that caused the next day allow me to flake out on the chores that I needed to do in order to have a clean apartment and food to eat this week. And I think that one of the problems today is that people live in such comfort zones that even being uncomfortable with something or not in the mood for it makes people flaky. Even if it's super important, people will often flake on themselves just because they aren't feeling motivated or inspired enough to do the things that they need to do that day. And each generation is getting worse than the last in that. When I was in my 20s, I used to think that the millennial girls I dated were so irresponsible with that shit. Flaking out on job interviews for jobs that they said they wanted. Flaking out on dates with guys that they said that they liked. It just didn't make any sense. But now, look at the Zoomers today. They will literally starve themselves just because they don't feel like dealing with their food situation and figuring out something to get to eat. They will let their fridge become empty because they don't feel like shopping and figuring out their meals for the week. And they are so unmotivated that they will just lie there doing nothing. In fact, there's a whole lying flat movement going on in Japan. And the male Zoomers are even worse than the female millennials used to be. I mean, they are like worse than teenage girls. And I think that if you need motivation just to function on the most basic survival mode, you're basically not cut out for life. You're essentially dead. And there is probably simply just no special motivational key that is going to save you from yourself and your abhorrent sloth. You shouldn't need motivation to do the things that you need to in order to survive, like feeding yourself or going to work. And you shouldn't have to take extra time and energy out of your day to try to motivate yourself to do them. These are just the types of things you shouldn't need motivation for, and you should just do no matter what your mood or how you feel about doing it. I myself am a disabled athlete with a number of physical health problems, ailments, and limitations. So I'm often too tired, uncomfortable, and in pain to be physically active, in spite of the fact that I do need exercise in order to be healthy and have fitness training scheduled, as I have a whole calendar for it. And even though motivation and inspiration and energy when working out is much more optimal and can enhance the experience, it still shouldn't be an absolute requirement, especially for every single workout. I have to work out, even if I don't feel like it, even if I am low on energy, because if I don't, I'm only going to feel worse, as my health will then get worse. So just like going to work at your job every day, with fitness training, consistency is key. Now, the most important and difficult part of it, like with many work tasks, is just showing up and getting started. And so if you can get going and just go through the motions until you get warmed up, the momentum will then carry you forward. For as I said, doing things in that mechanical automated mode does have its practical usefulness. So it doesn't matter if I'm tired because I didn't sleep well, or I'm feeling depressed, or low on energy, or I'm just not in the mood. I need to show up and get the work done just like I would any other form of work. And I'd never thought about motivating myself because I always just do the workout that's scheduled for me on that day, regardless of how I feel about it. Motivation is not required to accomplish any task for a man. I'm doing it because I put it in my schedule. And I put it in my schedule because it needs to be done. And I do what is in my schedule, regardless of if I feel like it at the time or not. I don't flake on myself because I'm not feeling inspired that day, just like so many women do. And maybe one of the problems here is that people these days don't keep a schedule that they abide by. And maybe that's just something that you need to do, is to start keeping a schedule, or at the very least a to-do list that you prioritize and then do in that order, in spite of the order of what you feel like doing at that time. All right, but the bottom line is, I say fuck motivation. Just do what you need to do in life. I think Nike might have had a saying about that once back in the 90s that might be appropriate here, but I'm not going to say it because I don't fucking work for them. But if you need a short little motto to live by in times when you feel unmotivated or bad, it should be this: fuck motivation. Fuck feelings. It doesn't matter what you are feeling. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like doing something. Do it anyway. And now that being said, if it isn't necessarily just motivation that you are lacking, but energy and the actual mental and physical power that you need to do things because you are tired and you don't have time for a nap to replenish your energies, then I do actually have a solution for that. And this is something that is much more powerful than motivation, because even motivation may not be enough if you are tired and out of energy. This is something that always gets me pumped up and ready for a hardcore workout no matter how I am feeling. And it is called rallying. And that's what the next video is about. So stay tuned by making sure that your subscription is set to all. And that concludes this video. Thanks for listening. I hope I mansplained that good enough for you. If you liked what you heard, please click the like button. And if you feel you gained some value from this video and would like to give some back, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support helps fund me doing this work and fight the good fight for men like you. And if you are ready to take the red pill and wake up from the matrix, be sure to check out my book, The Bible of Esoteric Knowledge, linked below. It is a extremely concise philosophy book written in verse format, just like the Bible. Bible, and it is packed full of all kinds of metaphysical information from all sorts of exotic philosophies, such as Eastern religions like Taoism and Buddhism, as well as shamanism and all sorts of esoteric secrets of the universe. It is sure to give you the intellectual stimulation that you crave, so get your copy at the link below. And otherwise, you can stay tuned for the next video coming out soon, which is on rallying. And until then, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.